He thought it was a midnight glitch until he saw her car drawing power from his outlet like it owned the place. Evan Cole liked order. As an electrical engineer, he trusted systems that behaved the way they were supposed to, wires that didn't wiggle, meters that told the truth, chargers that charged, and nothing else. His small duplex was tidy, predictable, until the neighborhood's self-appointed ruler moved in. Karen Freeman called herself the HOA president and ran the cul-de-sac like it was her kingdom. Immaculate hedges, polished newsletters, a campaign about green leadership stitched to her sleeve. She drove a newer Tesla than Evan's, smiled for the cameras at ribbon cuttings, and spoke about community values while someone else footed the bill. Her platform sounded admirable until it started draining Evan's electricity. It happened just after midnight on a Tuesday. Evan's phone buzzed in the dark. Charging interrupted. There was no outage, only the soft, impossible knowledge that his level 2 charger had stopped feeding his car. He padded to the driveway and saw the scene that made his stomach drop. The handle was unplugged from his car, and a thick black cable disappeared beneath the hood of the white Tesla parked beside him. Karen's car, plugged straight into his outlet. For a stunned moment, he only stared. This wasn't confusion or a careless mistake. It was theft, deliberate, quiet, and petty. He pulled on jeans and a hoodie without thinking. The street was cold. The only sound the faint hum of electricity running where it shouldn't. He walked to Karen's window and tapped. She startled, then composed herself with the practiced calm of someone used to being unchallenged. A sliver of glass rolled down. "Evan," she cooed. "Is there a problem?" He pointed at the cable. She smiled like she'd been inconvenienced. "Mine's out," she said. "Big meeting tomorrow. I'll just use yours for a few minutes." It was the casual assumption, his property as a convenience, that pricked him most. Evan could have been reasonable. If she'd knocked and asked, explained the emergency, he might have helped. But stealth and selfishness had replaced any attempt at courtesy. So he pressed the release on his charger, pulled the handle free, and wound the cable back onto the hook. The hum cut off and the drive went eerily still. "That's theft," he said. "Don't do it again." He didn't wait for thanks. He went inside and told Sarah, his partner, who woke up at his side and listened like someone hearing a bad dream made real. She was the voice who saw people, not just systems. Her reaction was immediate. You can't let her get away with it. She'd try again. A lock wouldn't teach entitlement a lesson. Evan needed a system, one that would treat Karen's arrogance like a variable to be measured and recorded. So he called Larry, the electronics whiz he'd worked with on odd jobs. Larry's response was a laugh and, a few minutes later, a promise. "Bring pizza. I'll bring the soldering iron. Over 2 weekends." In a haven of circuit boards and grease-splattered pizza boxes, they built something that looked innocuous but behaved like a sting. They bought a weatherproof steel enclosure and a high-grade smart lock. They rerouted the charging circuit so the cable that tempted thieves would no longer feed the house's 240-volt supply directly. Inside the box, a small computer, a Raspberry Pi, played decoy. It spoofed the charger's pilot signal so any connected car would think it was charging. A load diverter instructed Evan's home battery to soak up the phantom draw at a controlled rate. A data logger time-stamped every connection, every minute, every watt. They plastered the box in blunt legal notices, and a tech advisory cameras included, obvious and unhidden. "Let her see everything," Evan said. If she bypassed a visible lock and walked past clear warnings, she'd do it on purpose. If she plugged in, she'd hand them the evidence herself. Larry grinned at the finished system like a kid with a new toy. "A masterpiece of petty engineering," he declared. Sarah was quieter. "What if she gets furious?" she asked. Evan's answer was calm, a cold little thrill of conviction. Then we have the proof. They tested the code until it purred, each solder joint covered and every connection shrink-wrapped. The Pi uploaded logs to a secure cloud every minute. The camera would capture any face in the driveway. They left no plausible deniability. The trap sat like a promise beneath the eaves. Then, at 1:08 a.m. on a Thursday, Evan's phone woke him motion alert. He grabbed his laptop and pulled up the live feed. There she was, Karen Freeman, moving like a shadow in yoga pants and a hoodie, checkered flashlight beam searching the warning placards. For a second she hesitated, read, maybe thought, maybe feared, and then something like a smirk spread across her face. The woman who believed rules were optional reached into her designer bag. Evan didn't blink. The camera rolled. The system logged. And the neighborhood's queen was poised to teach them all a lesson about consequences. Of course, she hadn't come empty-handed. Out of her designer purse came a thin metal pick, the kind of bypass tool you'd expect in a lockpicking kit, not a midnight HOA escapade. She crouched at my box, convinced she was about to outsmart me. What she didn't know was that the shiny padlock dangling from the latch was a $10 decoy from the hardware store. The real smart lock, the one linked to my Wi-Fi and phone, was hidden inside. She was breaking into bait, not security. She fiddled for only a few seconds before the lock gave way with a click. Her smug grin widened victory. She swung open the steel door, revealing the charging handle neatly cradled like a prize. Without hesitation, she yanked the cable free, strutted to her Tesla, and plugged in. The port blinked once, then turned solid green. To her, it looked like a flawless theft. She even had the audacity to close the box, snap the fake lock shut, and stroll away like she'd cracked Fort Knox. I switched from the camera feed to my data logs, pulse racing. The Pi brain had registered her connection instantly. And then, there it was, the power wall diverting juice from the grid at the exact 7.2 kilowatts. Rate her car should have been drawing. On her end, the car reported charging with that reassuring green glow. In reality, every watt she thought she was stealing was pouring straight into my home battery. She wasn't robbing me. She was filling my reserves. I grinned so hard my cheeks ached. It worked. Not only had she ignored the warnings, but she'd walked headfirst into the trap. I saved the footage, labeled it Karen_grin.mp4, and took a screenshot of the logs. That was receipt number 1. And I knew there would be more. For 3 nights straight, the cycle repeated like clockwork. After midnight she'd sneak out, pick the fake lock, tether her car, then vanish before dawn. And every night, my cameras captured it all while my battery bank filled with stolen Karen-fueled power. Larry was ecstatic, texting me after night 3. We're running the cleanest power plant on Earth, fueled by pure entitlement. The evidence pile was beautiful, crisp video clips, time-stamped data logs, proof that couldn't be denied. But as satisfying as it was, it felt unfinished. The theft was real, the trap flawless, but she still thought she was winning. That smug satisfaction needed cracking. Sarah said it best. She doesn't care about the power. She cares about her image. If you want real justice, it has to hit there. That's when Stage 2 was born. In Larry's garage. Over cold pizza and whirring fans, we designed the payload. Nothing harmful, just humiliating. A buzzer, a glitter cannon. Timed perfectly 3 seconds after she plugged in. The next night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with Sarah, popcorn in hand, laptop glowing. At 1:53 a.m., motion alert, showtime. Karen slid out of her car, repeated her routine like a thief rehearsing a heist. Picked the dummy lock, opened the box, grabbed the cable, plugged it into her Tesla. Green blink. Solid glow. Then beep, beep, Beep. A shriek ripped through the night as the buzzer screamed. Simultaneously, a dense burst of purple and silver glitter exploded from the base of the charger, catching the streetlight in a sparkling storm. It drenched her yoga pants, clung to her hoodie, coated her shoes. She jumped back with a yelp, dropping the charger as though it had bitten her. She flailed, batting at the glitter cloud, but there was no escape. She shimmered like a disco ball gone wrong. Her face twisted between shock and fury, eyes darting around as if searching for hidden witnesses. The buzzer kept howling, echoing through the cul-de-sac until, finally, it died down. Inside, Sarah and I were doubled over with silent laughter, tears streaking down our cheeks. Watching the HOA queen of entitlement sparkling like a parade float was sweeter than any power log. Outside, Karen ripped the cable from her car, hurled it against the box, and slammed the steel door shut with glitter still raining from her sleeves. She didn't even bother locking her car. Karen stomped away, leaving a faint trail of glitter across the driveway as her tires screeched into the distance. I saved the clip under one perfect title, Karen Glitters Surprise. MP4. This wasn't about collecting evidence anymore. This was about spectacle. The prank had been my punchline, but as her car disappeared down the street, I realized something: chilling people like Karen don't retreat when humiliated. They retaliate. For 2 days, the neighborhood went silent. No late-night visits, no angry HOA emails, just the faint sparkle on the pavement reminding me of my small victory. I let myself hope maybe the strangeness of the glitter bomb had scared her off for good. I should have known better. Saturday afternoon, it happened. A thunderous pounding shook the side door of my garage. This wasn't a neighborly knock, it was the sound of someone demanding a fight. When I opened it, Karen stood there, arms crossed, eyes blazing. Beside her loomed a man I didn't recognize, towering, broad, his shirt stretched tight across muscles that looked carved out of stone. His scowl said everything. He was here to intimidate. Evan, Karen spat. This is my brother-in-law, Rick. He has something to say about your little games. Rick stepped forward, shadow swallowing the doorway. So you're the guy, he growled. The one who thinks it's funny to rig traps? I kept my voice steady, even as my pulse hammered. I think it's funny when thieves get caught, especially when they're stealing from me. Karen's lips curled. That's a serious accusation. You have no proof. Oh, I've got proof, I replied, staring her down. Dates, times, video. Would you like me to start sending the clips to your phone right now? Her eyes flickered. Just for a moment. Panic. That's when Rick tried the classic bully move. He leaned closer, so close I could smell the cheap cologne rolling off him. Here's what's going to happen, he rumbled. You're taking that box down and you're going to forget this ever happened. Understand? I stepped back, not in fear, but to mark the boundary of my doorway. No, your sister-in-law is a thief. And you, I locked eyes with him, are trespassing. Rick smirked and shoved me hard across the threshold. The second his hands hit me, everything changed. This wasn't just neighbor drama anymore, it was assault. I raised my hand, palm firm. Do not touch me again. You've just committed a crime. You are trespassing, and I order you to leave my property immediately. Inside, Sarah was already on the phone. Calm, steady, giving the police our address. Rick's face shifted. He'd expected a fight. He hadn't expected the law. Moments later, Karen's pale face confirmed it. Her show of force was crumbling. And when the police cruiser rolled silently up the cul-de-sac, the game was officially over. But not on her terms. On mine. The officer listened as I laid it all out. The theft, the trap, the shove. Rick admitted he pushed me, muttering excuses. Karen flailed with wild gestures. But the officer saw through it. I can issue a formal trespass warning, he said. One step on your property again, he gets arrested. Do you want to press charges for the assault? I thought about it. Jail wasn't my goal stopping Karen was. The warning is enough, I said. Rick got handed the slip. His glare could have set fire to the driveway, but I didn't flinch. They drove off without another word. The officer gave me an incident number, then smirked faintly. A glitter bomb, huh? That's a new one. Just be careful. People like this? Unpredictable. When the cruiser left, I finally let the adrenaline drain. Karen had tried to crush me with intimidation. Instead, she handed me documented evidence and a legal weapon. This was no longer petty neighbor drama. This was war with rules written in black and white, and Karen Freeman had just crossed a line she couldn't erase. 2 days after the brother-in-law incident, Karen made her next predictable move, and this time she weaponized the system. A squad car rolled to a stop in front of my duplex, and 2 officers walked up my path with faces that said this was serious. My stomach dropped. This was the counterattack I'd been dreading. Evan Cole? The senior officer asked. I confirmed my name. He explained they'd received a complaint from one of my neighbors, Ms. Karen Freeman. According to the report, I'd built an illegal, dangerous device on my property that supposedly damaged her vehicle's charging system, and that my cameras were aimed at her home. Credit where it's due. She tried to flip the script and make herself the victim. I stayed calm. Please, come inside, I said, and led them through the front door. Sarah gave me a small, steadying nod from the kitchen. I had rehearsed this exact scenario. First, I addressed the cameras. I pulled up the live feed on my laptop and showed the mounting point clearly on my property and the masked angles that avoided the public street or any neighbor's yard. I even brought up a satellite overlay to prove the field of view. The officers examined it and relaxed. A security camera monitoring your own driveway is lawful. Now the device? The officer prompted. Right this way, I replied, taking them into the garage. I left the enclosure open for inspection. Larry and I had built it clean and professional. No frayed wires, no exposed terminals, everything grounded and shielded. I pointed out the charger unit and then the modification, the load diverter and the small control computer. It's low voltage control only, I explained. It never supplies traction power to a vehicle. The Pi simply spoofs the pilot so a plugged-in car thinks it's charging while the real energy is rerouted to the home battery. The EVSE itself is UL rated. The control circuitry is isolated and incapable of delivering dangerous voltage to a car. I produced a binder, schematics, component spec sheets, printed code sections from the local electrical regulations with the relevant language highlighted. The senior officer flipped through it, impressed. You did your homework, he said. Then I switched to the harassment angle. I opened a folder on my desktop labeled receipts and played the footage. The first nighttime confrontation, the return with the latch tool, the repeated late-night trespasses, and finally the glitter bomb clip. I walked them through the data logs next, a color-coded spreadsheet showing every connection, each timestamp, and the kilowatt hours diverted to my battery. I pointed out one night where she'd been connected for 7 hours and the system recorded 50.4 kilowatt hours redirected to my home bank. At 18 cents per kilowatt hour, it worked out to roughly $9 that night. Small sums, but repeated attempts added up, over $70 worth of attempted theft since the system went live. Some small charges taken before I locked it down. The room went quiet as officer and partner moved from screen to screen, the complaint unraveling into hard files and numbers. Sir, the senior officer said, returning my binder, this looks very different from what was reported to us. I told him about Rick's shove and the trespass warning issued 2 days earlier. The officer's pen scratched as he made a note. He hadn't known about that altercation. He straightened and offered a new tone, professional, but with respect. "You're within your rights," he said. "You've got evidence of theft of services and repeated trespassing. If you want to pursue criminal charges, we can take a report." I considered it, then decided my aim wasn't to lock someone up. It was to stop the behavior. A trespass warning was sufficient, I told him. He handed me his card and told me to call if anything else happened, before they left. The officers paused to speak with Karen, who had been watching from her porch down the street. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the officer point toward my house and then at her, a look that left no doubt whose actions were being questioned. Karen's face went white, then hard, and she shot me a look that was pure hatred. I had won the immediate fight. Logic, documentation, and the law had dismantled her accusation. Yet that look told me the war wasn't over. This wasn't only about stolen power anymore. It was about reputation. Karen's whole public identity, the polished HOA president, the green-spoken community leader, was on the line. With HOA election night just a week away and debate night looming, I knew her desperation would only grow. The police visit had been a decisive victory, but it also painted a target on my back. The stakes had ratcheted up, from neighborly petty war to something far more dangerous, a political fight that could get ugly fast. I had already humiliated Karen Freeman in front of the police, and for someone like her obsessed with appearances, especially with an upcoming election that was unforgivable, she wasn't the type to attack me head-on. No, Karen was too cunning for that. She would use the one weapon she controlled absolutely, the HOA, but fate dealt her a blow first. Just a few days later, I spotted a city inspector's van pulling up outside her house. Clipboard in hand, he studied the side wall, the exact spot where Karen's EV charger should have been. I'll admit, I might have placed an anonymous call to the city, suggesting they review recent permits for high amperage electrical installations. Safety first, right? From my window, I watched the whole thing unfold. Karen tried her usual act, waving her arms, turning on that fake charm, but the inspector wasn't buying it. Before leaving, he slapped a glaring red tag across her outlet. Stop work order. Her shiny, under-the-table DIY charger was now condemned. That was the missing piece. Karen hadn't been borrowing my charger because hers broke. She had cut corners, got caught, and now her eco-friendly image was crumbling. Without a home charger, her entire green campaign platform was toast. And in her desperation, she had turned to stealing from me. The very next day, her counterattack arrived, a thick envelope delivered by certified mail. Inside, an official violation notice signed by none other than Karen Freeman, HOA president. According to her, I was guilty of 3 outrageous offenses: an unapproved structure on my property, my steel lockbox, unauthorized signage, my warning labels, a public nuisance, my buzzer alarm. I had 7 days to remove everything or face $100 daily fines, followed by a lien on my home. It wasn't just a warning. It was total war, but instead of fear, I felt adrenaline. She had finally overplayed her hand, putting her abuse of power in writing. This wasn't just a threat, it was evidence. And in 4 days at the annual HOA election meeting, I would use it to end her reign. I prepared like an engineer headed into battle. I combed through every bylaw and clause. My steel box counted as a utility structure explicitly permitted. My signs, clearly classified as security warnings. And her nuisance claim? Ridiculous, my alarm had gone off once for less than 10 seconds in response to her trespass. Her case was paper thin, and I was about to set it on fire. I gathered every shred of proof, video clips edited into a clean, damning timeline. Chart showing the exact dates, times, and stolen kilowatt-hours. The police incident report. her absurd violation letter. And for the grand finale, the glitter bomb footage complete with slow-motion replay, but that wasn't the best part. While scrubbing hours of recorded audio, I stumbled across the smoking gun, Karen's own voice. On the third night she tapped my charger, she complained on the phone. "I don't know what's wrong with this thing. It says it's charging, but my battery's barely moving. Feels like it's sucking my Tesla dry." The irony was delicious. She was furious that my decoy charger was draining her car, when in reality, she had been draining me all along. That sound bite became the closing slide of my presentation. When the night of the election came, I walked into the packed clubhouse with my laptop and projector. 50 neighbors sat waiting. Karen sat at the head table, playing queen of the court, smug and confident. She thought she had me cornered. She thought her violation notice would scare me into silence. But I wasn't just a homeowner. I was an engineer. And I had the receipts. The meeting began, and Karen gave her campaign speech hollow promises about aesthetic integrity, fiscal responsibility, and a greener tomorrow. I nearly laughed out loud when she had the audacity to say, "We must support neighbors making the switch to clean energy." The hypocrisy was staggering. Then, the floor opened for questions. A few neighbors asked about pool budgets and satellite dishes, and then I stood. "Evan Cole, 1420 Koldik Drive," I announced, my voice steady but carrying across the hushed clubhouse. "I don't have a question tonight. I have evidence proof of repeated theft and the abuse of power by our HOA president." Ripple of shock cut through the crowd. 50 pairs of eyes darted from me to Karen. For the first time, her polished facade cracked. Panic flashed in her eyes before she forced it back behind a brittle smile. "This is not the forum for personal grudges," she snapped. "If you have a complaint, file it in writing." "Oh, I have it in writing," I replied, holding up the violation notice she had sent me. "But this community deserves to see the truth behind it. This concerns all of us." Without waiting for approval, I strode to the front, set my small projector on a table, and lit up the blank wall behind the board. The room fell silent. As many of you know, I own an EV. That charger installed with permits and inspection sits on my property, powered by my electricity. I clicked to the next slide. A grainy still frame of Karen's Tesla plugged into my charger in the dead of night. For weeks, it has been used without my consent by none other than our HOA president. Gasp swept through the room. Karen shot to her feet, voice shrill. "This is slander. You have nothing." "On the contrary," I said coolly, "I have more than enough." The first clip played, me confronting her politely, her brushing me off with the excuse that her charger wasn't working. The next slide. A photo of the red tag stop work order slapped on her illegal setup. Murmurs grew louder. Then the damning video. Karen sneaking back, flashlight in hand, smirking as she picked the dummy lock on my decoy box. The crowd stiffened. "This wasn't a mistake," I narrated. "It was deliberate, repeated theft. Charts filled the wall, dates, times, kilowatt hours stolen." I broke it down simply, fact by fact. And then my ace. The glitter bomb footage, the shriek of the buzzer, the explosion of purple sparkles. Half the room gasped, the other half roared with laughter. The mighty HOA queen, drenched in glitter. Karen's face went scarlet, then white. She looked ready to combust, but I wasn't finished. Next came the clip of her brother-in-law shoving me in my own garage, followed by the police incident report. Finally, I held up the violation letter she sent me, punishing me for rules she herself had broken. "This," I said firmly, "is not leadership. It's corruption." She weaponized her position to silence the very neighbor she was stealing from. The room fell dead silent. No laughter now, just the weight of truth sinking in. And for my final exhibit, I continued. "Let's hear Karen in her own words," I hit play. Her voice filled the clubhouse, sharp and whining. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. It says it's charging, but my battery level is barely moving. Feels like it's sucking my Tesla dry. Silence. Then a single laugh from the back. Another joined in. And then the entire room erupted. Waves of uncontrollable laughter rolling over Karen like a tidal wave. The irony was undeniable. She had been draining me, yet accused my charger of draining her. A self-inflicted wound so perfect, it destroyed her in an instant. Karen stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing without a sound. Her reign shattered in front of the very neighbors she longed to control. The laughter was more than mockery. It was a verdict. When the vote was called, her defeat was absolute. Her opponent, Martha, the quiet retired schoolteacher, won in a landslide over 90%. Even Karen's own board abandoned her dot, and then came the final blow. Martha's very first act as president, a new amendment, clear and ironclad. It stated that any homeowner's private property chargers, vehicles, equipment was protected by deed. Unauthorized use would be treated as trespassing and theft, with full HOA support for prosecution. The motion passed unanimously. The Karen Freeman rule. In half an hour, I had not only cleared my name but reshaped the rules of our neighborhood forever. When the meeting adjourned, my neighbors surrounded me, shaking my hand, clapping my back, thanking me. Dozens shared their own stories of Karen's petty tyranny. Fines for late holiday lights, nasty notes about invisible weeds. For years, they had lived in fear of her. Tonight, they were free. And Karen? She left the clubhouse in silence, her crown of power shattered into glitter and laughter.